Welcome to another episode of the Chrissy Mayer Podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, go ahead and leave a 5-star review. For example, here's a short and sweet review from Shane9972. Like the show, good job. That's all you need to do, guys. Heads up to anybody in the New Jersey area tonight. This Sunday, today, the 17th, I'm performing with Comedians of the Compound in Lakewood, New Jersey. We are doing a show right at 6 p.m. So if you're in the Jersey area, Lakewood, New Jersey, come on by. This was rescheduled from yesterday because we had some rain. But yeah, we're going to have fun tonight. And then I'll be headlining at Tiff's in Morris Plains, New Jersey, the Dojo of Comedy, Tiff's Ale House, on Saturday, November 6th. For tickets to that one, go to my website, chrissymayer.com. And for any Comedians of the Compound shows, go to compoundcomedy.com or my website and prepare to lol. Quick shout out to our sponsor. I don't know if you guys are single. It's cuffing season soon. You got to find your person. And we know dating apps are terrible. They're superficial. You're swiping faces. There's experts. You don't know if they're experts. It feels like a waste of time. Solution is a value-based matching system. If you're conservative, things probably aren't going to work out with someone who's a total lefty. Same with religion, lifestyle, how to raise kids, and other core values. Sure, somebody could change while you're with them, but why not just meet your perfect match from the start? Drome is a free, new, values-based dating app. You pick your deal breakers and deal makers. There's no experts, no match percentages. You don't have to addictively check the app. As soon as someone matches your deal breakers and deal makers and you match theirs, you get a notification. Drome is also video only for more human interaction. So go to drome.date/CMP in your phone's browser, click the iOS or Google button to install and use the invite code CMP to sign up. If you're already matched up, tell your friends. That's DROM.date/CMP. Design and meet your perfect match. It's free to use. Why not, guys? Time to find somebody who has a generator in time for winter. Do you know what I mean? All right. Back on the pod today, friend of the show, real life IRL friend of mine. She is a recovering SJW. She is the host of Unsafe Spaces. Carrie Smith, how are you, doll?
Hi, Chrissy. I thought you were going to say recovering from the coof, which we had at the same time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if I gave it to you. I don't know.
I
We
don't
were,
know who, we were at a show together in Texas, and it was a few days after that, several days after that, that we came down with a coof at the same time. And my husband actually thinks that it was, he has a funny story about how one of his friends who was there had just come from an international trip. And they had just landed at the airport. And then he said to him, "Oh, where'd you fly in from?" And he said, "Spain." And it was like slow-mo, a little bit of spit like
Spain. Yeah.
landed on him. And he was thinking, and he said he thought, "I bet that's how I'm going to get COVID." We
Wow.
did.
You
So,
can see it happening in you're
yeah.
like, wow, that's gonna be the droplet that does it.
Yep.
But like you guys weren't living your lives in fear of droplets. You were
No,
just yeah.
I'm surprised I didn't get it before, because here in Texas, things have not been as affected as they are in New York. I mean, obviously Austin's a little more like New York, but he's a musician. Most of his shows are outside of Austin, and places that are still open, and we were just so living our life like normal. I didn't wear a mask very much at all. Most stores didn't require it, even when the state supposedly required it. If you're outside of Austin, most of them were flexible about it. So yeah, I'm surprised it took so long for us to get it,
Me
honestly.
too. I wanted to get it. I wanted it. I was like, I'm here. You know what I mean? I was just
Yeah.
living life, raw dog in life. You know what I mean? Just living hard, going everywhere, keeping my mouth open. And it took a year and a half. So
But
well,
you didn't have it too bad, right?
yeah,
Like,
I was lucky, and I had cough drops and honey and tea and vitamins, and I was able to kick it with
yeah.
just probably a lot of that stuff was expired too. So I just just drinking my
I
crusty honey and hoping for the
honey,
best. Mhm.
I took so everyone knows, I took zinc, which is prescribed for horses
Yes,
sometimes,
zinc. Mhm,
vitamin
echinacea.
C, and D, which sometimes horses take those. Also aspirin horses take, and did ivermectin, which horses take, and the H2O, which is a horse drink. They drink it. I
Why
did that too.
cast so much shade on horses? Do you know what I mean? Like, horses are bigger and stronger than us. They're several 100-pound, one of the strongest animals, can pull carts, carriages, people. If it's good enough for a horse, it's good enough for people. Yeah, see? You got a little Ivor behind you there. Yeah, zinc is great. Zinc is always I mean, everyone knows that. You take that just in the colder months to keep your immunity up. So, I don't know,
I
but,
know
you
that
can't talk
now. Yeah.
about
You can't
regular
talk
ass
about these
vitamins
things.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, so I found for getting over the lingering effects, because we still have some, I don't know about you, but I've got a bit of brain fog and still lethargy, like really tired. It's getting better, and I still don't have my sense of smell and stuff. So we've been doing this vitamin regimen that I found that this doctor came up with for some Olympic athletes post COVID to help do
Ooh.
cellular repair. So we're taking like 30 vitamins a day now, probably all horse vitamins. They probably
Horse
take all every
pills.
yeah.
Yeah, my mom
Yeah.
would always give us horse pills, like, growing up. Like, she'd just be like, "Take a big ass vitamin C."
Yeah.
I should do that. I've been like, "Oh, I'm better. I'm out of the woods," but I should really be taking more vitamins. And then I run out and I'm like, "All right, I guess, if I'm not about to die, I don't need to take vitamins," but you
It can be
should just for
expensive,
me.
yeah.
It can get expensive, especially if you get the gummies. Like, there was a point where, like, me and Frank were just all gummy vitamins, and I was like, "All right, it's like it feels like you're eating a bag of gummies."
Candy.
Yeah. But we got over it. We're better now.
Good.
We're crushing it.
Glad.
People in the chat are a little disoriented because you're not wearing a hat. They don't entirely recognize
Oh
you.
gosh. Yeah. I just came from church and I wasn't wearing one. I don't always wear a hat. It's funny. People think that because of the show, I wear it. If you wear one at least 50% of the time, then it's like, oh, you're the hat person. It's like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you don't want to pigeonhole
But
yourself. Like, you're still you without a hat.
yeah.
I loved the venue that we saw your boyfriend, fiance,
Husband.
oh God, even
That's cool. It's
even
fine.
more so. These all three wrapped into one. It was great, and it was so Texas because I had gone all the way out to this venue. God, I forget where it was, but I had come from, I think, the Fort Worth Grapevine area, which feels like kind of any other suburb, but
Yeah.
taking the Uber out to this place. I can't. Do you remember what it
The
was called?
Bartonville store. And
Bartonville.
it's
Okay.
yeah, and it's outside of Fort Worth. It's a really cool old venue. It feels like real Texas.
Yes, you're driving past like pastures and cows, and I'm like, this is it. This is what you know what I mean? This is why I came to Texas, is to see, animals basically. And lots of people in this venue were wearing cowboy hats, like at least a good 5 people, which is a lot. Usually there's like the
Ladies
one
too.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, ladies too. Yeah, last night I love Texas for that. All the small towns, like so Saturdays I work. I have a really long day on Saturdays, but part of my job on Saturdays takes me all over the state. So and I was going through Fredericksburg last night, and they had an open air tent in the middle of the town. It's this old German Texas town, and they
Ooh.
had an old band out there, and it was Oktoberfest, big celebration, and tons of people in the tent. And I had to drive by and circle with my window open so I could hear, because they had the upright bass, like all the old timey, the cowboys, and everybody was doing the 2-step, and it was cool. I love it. It just feels like a bit of a bit of the past and history that's still here. And I know other places have history too. Like Boston feels like a town for me that has a lot of history there, but I love the
Definitely.
Texas
Oh,
history.
my sister's a history nerd. She like was jizzing constantly when I took her to Boston because like everywhere you look is a monument or like a guy on a horse, and you're like, oh, it's so much history in Boston.
Old cemeteries there too.
Yeah. I like, what? I've had it with the future. I'm done with modernity. I'm done with, minimalistic shit. I'm done with chrome, anything like futuristic. I'm about the past now. I'm listening to country music. I'm, buying nicer stuff that will last for a while instead of like a pants that dissolve in water. I'm just I'm
You have
about to pass. Yeah.
you have the pants that dissolve in water.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called fast fashion, Carrie. I'm done shopping at H&M, Forever 21. I'm done dressing like a child prostitute is what I'm saying. You go to these stores and you're like, what am I doing here? I don't know. I'm a new woman, Carrie. I worked out today for the first time
Woohoo!
in like okay, well, I ran a couple days ago, but this was like with weights and somebody yelling at me. Like that was the full experience.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Get back in there.
it was getting back on the horse. No pun intended. It's so funny. Like I went to this like it's called F45, and I don't really know what the F stand. Oh, maybe I think it's called functional. And I'm like, oh, it's like little stations, it's circuit training. I'm like, oh, this is just curves with like better marketing. It's curves, but like with like no fatties, It's just like
Oh, so they yell at you and you go from station to station.
yeah, yeah, and you have, like, screens in front of you telling you what to do, which is good because it's like, I know moves, it's like, I know my way around a gym, but I'd rather just be like, "Okay, here it is, this is a mixture of different muscles that you're gonna work, like, we already figured it out, just show up and do it, and then it's over before you know it." And then all their merch is, like, has 45 on it, and I was like, "This is great."
Uh,
Like, if you're someone who, like, hated Trump, you'd be like, no
uh,
thanks."
yeah.
But you're like, "Oh,
Uh,
this is just for my gym. I don't, I think I'm gonna get a bunch of their merch and maybe put Trump's head on it." But it was fun. It was good. I'm definitely gonna be sore. But I want to
Good. That's
stay.
a good
I
workout.
want to like stay on it. I say this every time. It's like you get sore and then you're just like, all right, well, see you next month. So,
Yeah. Then that means that guarantees you'll have to go through it all again if you don't
uh,
stay at it. My
yeah.
housemate is an old friend of mine who finally moved out here from California because she couldn't work out there anymore. And she's a bodybuilder and a trainer.
Ooh.
Yeah, and but now that she's in Texas, she started working at a lot of different farms. She's a farmer now, and she was
Whoa.
telling yeah, but she keeps me on my toes. She's getting me back in the gym and stuff. But yesterday she said she had to go change her phone service, and they were asking what she does for a living because she might get a discount. Like, are you in the military or whatever? She's like, no, I'm a farmer. And the woman said to her, I'm sorry, you look too fancy because she does look like the beautiful nails, long, beautiful hair like yours. She's super fit and just really femme. She's like, what? You're a farmer? Like, what are you doing? But
Yeah,
Texas has changed her.
there's
She's
no
a farmer.
straw in your mouth. I think they should market like the farmer workout, like pulling, I don't know, a
Yes.
tractor behind you, like pushing a cow. Like I think there's a
Carrying
whole
pails.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
workout
the
that you do in the gym.
buckets.
Yeah, the buckets.
They could take it yeah, there's a Spartan race, there's CrossFit, like a lot of these like gyms kind of like share from each other. I did a couple Spartan races. Like when my mom got sick, I was like, I know what'll help. Killing myself, like paying $100 to do a race, and then you work up to it. But
Yeah.
it's really good though. I forget how much exercise is just such a natural anxiety release, and you forget because you just try to reason yourself out
Mhm.
of anxiety, out of your worry. But sometimes, depending on who you are, sometimes you can talk it out. Sometimes it has to be a physical release. Sometimes you need a creative release. Sometimes it's like listening to music or making art. Um, and every time I
Yeah.
work out, I'm reminded, like, oh yeah, sometimes you just have to physically get it out of you.
Yeah. It's cathartic. And
Yeah.
I think we forget that because it's hard. And so anything that's hard, whether it's physical work on yourself or spiritual work or whatever, it's sort of like I want to avoid that because that's hard. But when you actually you force yourself to do it and you try and get that discipline, you're right. It's afterwards you so thankful. Who's not thankful at the end of it, right? That they went through it. But
Yeah, you're like, "I'm done." Like, I was supposed to go yesterday, and I was like, "I'm tired." But then the entire day, I regretted it. So I'm like, "Okay, well, it's not worth it to blow it off and get that extra hour of
mhm,
sleep is not worth having the rest of the day, like, feeling bad about it."
yeah.
Yeah, guys, I learned a lesson until tomorrow when I'll forget it. Did you see this clip? I'm gonna play this clip of
Okay.
Jon Stewart. It's of course he's got a new show out. And I'm just trying to discern if this clip is him just trying to promote his new show, or I don't know. Jon Stewart is like the last sort of funny representative of the left here.
Episode of The Daily Show with your last episode of The Daily Show was in 2015. Between then and now, there have been 2 presidential elections, 2 impeachments, an insurrection, a global pandemic. Was it frustrating to watch all of this play out without it being your job to weigh in?
It was, I never really, the job was
How
a
does
nice
Jon
way
Stewart
of
not have a
going in and
professional
kind of
microphone
working
at this
through all
point in
those
his
things.
house?
That was, I think, the
Are you
idea
kidding
of
me?
having to comment on it on television. But I used
How
to
is he
really
still
enjoy,
using his MacBook mic
going
when
in
he's
the
going
morning
live with
with a group of
CNN?
smart, funny people and just talking.
I think
about
some
everything
people are
that's going
just
on,
big
which
enough
is
they
sort of
don't.
weird,
They're like, I don't
sort
need it.
Yeah, I'm
old
above
people sitting
sounding good.
at a counter.
Imagine the
lunch,
luxury of like,
at
yeah,
a lunch place,
I'm just gonna turn the
just
lights
talking
off
about the
and
day. So I missed
phone
that
it
part
in.
of it. But it was like we had in one of the early shows. I think one of the audience members said, you missed so much.
Look how bored they both are talking about this.
I was alive. I did see it. I had to wear a mask like everybody else during the pandemic.
So
I
he's like,
experienced these
obviously I was
things.
talking
I
over
just
him, but he
didn't
was
have
like,
the
I went through the
show,
pandemic, I lived it,
by
even
which
though
to
I wasn't
comment on.
talking about
The
it
most
every day.
recent episode of your show tackles the very idea of
Promo.
freedom and democracy in the United States and worldwide. You had these activists on your show from Egypt and Venezuela and the Philippines to talk about the guardrails of democracy.
None of these late
And one
night
of the things
hosts
you asked
look
them
better
was
when
if-
they're in
if
their sort
they
of
think
overgrown
that
stage.
Americans who
Oh,
are
you don't think
worried
so? The
about the
beard?
erosion
I don't
of
love it. I
democracy,
don't think Trevor
whether
Noah
we
looked
are,
better with his
you,
fro.
me,
I don't
others,
think
are
Dave Letterman looked
hyperventilating
better with
too
his
much.
crazy homeless beard, and I don't think
What do you think? And were
Stewart
you
looks
reassured
better
at all
like
by
this.
what they had to say?
I
Well, to
agree
some
about
extent, I was. I mean, I
David
think
Letterman's
in general,
homeless beard, but I kind of like this look on what's his face,
on Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart, brain fog. See there, it's still there.
He just looks like, all right, this is my dad's friend. Like, okay, this is my dad's friend who makes more money than us.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know he had. This is how far out of the loop I am on something. I didn't know he had a new show. Is it comedy or is it news?
He had a new show. It debuted late September, and I'm sure that's what this all is. It's just like a big promo ad for his new show. And I don't know. I feel like he really was on a roll with the Daily Show, and I think not that he peaked, but like he's had turned over a new chapter. Like they gave it to Trevor Noah. He stunk. He stinks currently.
He does stink.
I just don't know. I just feel like so many other folks have taken off and podcasts have really taken off since Jon Stewart was on the air, and that people are just not, I don't know. I don't think he's going to have as much pull to watch this new show as he did with the Daily Show.
No, the only thing he could do, I think that would really get people very interested and get a big audience again would be to do something unexpected and very authentic. I think he's a secret wrong thinker. And if
really,
I do. I get every once in a while you see him do these interviews where he says something that kind of challenges the narrative that we're being force fed by the corporate media. And it just,
yeah, like
he just was
his whole thing on Colbert when he was like, "What do you mean? It's called a." Well, he basically called out the lab, and he said, "Duh!" Like you put 2 and 2 together, and
like it came maybe from a lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was pushing back on this. He was pointing out that it was more. You would have to be more of a conspiracy theorist to think that it sprang from nature, from and when there's a lab right there where it originated that studies this very thing, and what is it? Is it Occam's razor that says the most simple explanation is usually the right one? It's like, so he sort of pushes back a little bit, and I think he's a secret wrong thinker. And what would be cool, if I'm right, if he is a secret wrong thinker, if he had the balls just to come out, no matter what they call him, they're going to call him all the things they call Rogan. They call everybody alt right, far right. I'm sure you get called far right when you're not.
Oh yeah.
They would call him that, but at the same time, who cares? You would get real, authentic, engaged audience members, I think, if you did that. So that would be interesting.
This is an interesting comment from Tara Wombat. No, he's controlled opposition. When they can't lie anymore, they send him in. I believe that, because look at all of these pundits. Are we ever going to see Don Lemon apologize for something he said? Are we ever going to see well, not Chris Cuomo. I feel like he's out of it now, but like none of these guys are ever going to walk back anything they say or apologize. So it's like, right, do they have a Jon Stewart come in and kind of almost be like the leftist version of Common Sense, just to sort of temper their extreme takes?
Maybe. I know. But what's funny is that I do believe some people are control opposition, but I hear that used all the time now. I'm like, well, not everybody is. Like some people, maybe he is. I don't know. But some people actually do have. They change their mind about things, and maybe they open their mind in a little bit, but they're still in. He's clearly still in the leftist world and the leftist ecosystem. So it wouldn't seem fake to me that he might be someone who's like secretly questioning certain things, but is in a world in which he doesn't feel comfortable doing that full on, publicly. Because you know what happens. You get thrown out of the tribe, you get called all the names, you get labeled a right winger. And for some of these people in the leftist world, there's nothing worse than being called, a Trump supporter or a right wing. Like that's to them, that's like the death of identity.
Yeah,
that's the death of their identity.
The left cannot handle being called any names at all. They completely melt down. Whereas like if you're just not on the left, if you're a little bit in the middle or on the right, like being able to handle being called names is like kind of part of the deal. You're just like, all right, what next? I'm a Nazi today. Great. What's for breakfast?
What's for breakfast?
And Stuart,
can I tell you a funny story about this? What we call names. This is a funny aside. My husband told me when things started to get serious between us, we were dating. He has a stalker. Did I tell you this privately?
No.
Okay. And so he was like,
I want
"Look,
a stalker."
He said, "This is a girl I dated over 10 years ago, and well, maybe not a stalker, but she has stalked and sent messages to all of his girlfriends since, and to the degree at which I think it was serious with one of them. They were talking about a restraining order or something. So he was like, look, if you ever get hate mail from someone and it's anonymous and it's really nasty hate mail, just know this is this person. You need to be aware of this person from my past." And I just started laughing because I was like, I get anonymous hate mail all the time. I don't know. So I thought that was a really funny sketch. Like, what if you had a skit about a stalker at home who's frustrated because their hate isn't affecting you because you're just like, delete. I can't differentiate it from the other people who hate me.
When your bar for being hated is like so high, you're like, what? That's it? That's all you got?
That's it? It's like you said, like I got called a Nazi yesterday. So like,
yeah, all 4 times before I had coffee. Okay. Okie Native for 2, thanks for the super chat. These dissolving pants, did I miss that video? Not dissolving. I guess I was meaning to say the ones that like the Adidas track pants that you rip off. Like everyone had those in high school. And my mom's like, I'm not gonna buy you pants. Like anyone can just come rip them off. I was like, that's not gonna happen down like the halls of Southside High School, but who knows? Maybe. Let's see if Jon Stewart has anything else interesting to say. Oops, and he's muted. I guess not.
Sort of classic New Yorker poster of New York City.
And the thing, Jon Stewart, his rise to fame came at a time where he was like a regular liberal, like he represents a lot of people who are just like, yeah, gays can do what they want and like women can work. Great,
A different world. And some people still think we're living in that Jon Stewart world, don't they?
I would love to get Jon Stewart drunk and like I bet you hear him be like, everything's fucking crazy. Like what's going on? I'm sure he feels a little bit ostracized from a place where he normally was kind of the leading voice
of the country. So it's bracing sometimes to hear the reality of people's lives in other countries. As it's not to say that warning signs don't exist or bells aren't going off or that democracy is a birthright and is something that will always be with us as a kind of a sash that we wear, having been crowned the greatest democracy. But it did remind us that we have a long way to go before we end up in those situations. And it's kind of like, watching a fable where you realize like, maybe the end of a Christmas Story where you're like, what day is it? It's Christmas Day. Oh my God, that's great. I still have time. Like we still have time. But I think we see now that unfortunately the messiness of democracy is oftentimes maybe one of its greatest weak points, in that we talk about protecting it in a way. I remember it was always, the hyperventilating over, Donald Trump is not normal. He's violating the Hatch Act. And
those were the days
I don't know what hatch you speak of.
when we could shit on Trump and have a whole
people
show.
generally want prosperity and security, and if a democratic system is having difficulty providing that, or if it's being subverted by those who want to create chaos so that they can,
Who is
make
he
a more
talking about?
authoritarian government, that's
There-
part of it too. Listen,
I think he's being
nothing's
careful.
guaranteed like that. And
Yeah.
the encouraging thing is watching on a grassroots level people that are really viewing it as something that they want to protect and that they want to
Is
strengthen.
that a tiny bottle of milk behind him? What is this?
Looks like some kind of a shake.
He's having. You always gotta. That's when you zoom. You gotta watch out what's behind you.
And working on those things on the ground.
As somebody who worries about democracy every day, I do appreciate your conveying of optimism right now. But we have a majority of the Republican voters out there who think that falsely that the election was stolen, and who think it is an
Falsely?
integral part of defining themselves as Republicans.
How do you prove
to
that
say
it's
that Donald
false?
Trump had the election stolen from him. I mean, this is not only not going away.
We can still
This
keep pretending it wasn't, right?
misinformation,
Right?
Yeah.
What's going to be
lie,
our new argument for this? That it was fair.
Flirtation with autocracy.
Remember when they were saying
It's
that
getting
falsely
worse.
believed that the virus came from a lab?
Yeah. How like you can see in the tone of his voice, like how sort of kind of desperate he sounds.
Yeah.
Like they're still bringing that up. They're still. I don't know. I think we should
So-
just move on. Like, you guys are in
They-
power, aren't you? So shouldn't
I
you
saw
not care
some
how?
people in your chat are saying, like, what is he talking about? And I agree. Like, what is he talking about? Sometimes people are so vague, and we're in such a place because of postmodernism where you have to define your terms. So when he's talking about democracy and he's afraid of losing, what does he mean? Define democracy for me, because a lot of people will say they're afraid of democracy ending in the states, when what they really, I think, mean is the republic. We are a republic. We're a democratic republic. And my co-host on Safe Space, Carter, is always talking about how democracy sucks. Like, there's a reason we're not a straight up democracy. The majority there are certain things that should not be left up to the whim of a majority, like the rights of a minority, for example. There are constitutional protections that we don't leave up to a democracy. The mob is wrong about a lot of things. So there's a reason that we're a democratic republic. And I think a lot of the left, especially after Trump won, they seem to want to get away from the idea that we're a republic, and sort of they want us to live in a place where the majority rules, because they think that they'll be able to control the majority and have. I think that's where they're going anyway. Is this place? Remember they were talking about getting rid of the Electoral College and wanting to be a popular vote.
They would constantly shitting on the electoral. Oh, we can't have these dumb country folk that live in places other than New York and California controlling our elections.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so naked, but the shoe's always on the other foot, because when Trump won, they were talking about secession and Calexit. I remember, and having just moved from California to Texas at the time, I was really aware that they were talking about. I'm like, you guys are talking about seceding? That's really interesting, because depending on who's in office, the left is against the very idea of secession. But then if it's Trump in office, they're for it. Now they're back to being against it. I don't know. It gets to be confusing. That's what happens when I think you don't have any principles that are uniform across. They're not guided by principles. They're guided by whatever is efficient and helps what I want to get at this moment. That I'm going to say that.
Yeah. I think the topic of succession is so, I don't know, popular right now. It's because I think the majority of the country wants to come together. A lot of us have the same morals and principles, but when we're hearing from like the loud far leftist media, it makes us think like, wow, I guess we're just never going to get along. I guess the only solution is splitting up, and it's enough to make you go crazy. It's like, oh, are they keeping these people on the air because it makes most of us nuts, and it just fuels more division And
Yeah.
at the end of the day makes you go, oh, I guess we're never gonna get along. So fuck, I'll just buy more gold, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, they want us. I do believe they want us divided because take one issue like the COOF. So we're in a place where we're completely divided over the policies around it, and all we do is hate on each other and attack each other, mostly coming from one direction, in my opinion. Whether or not you wear a mask, whether or not you're vaccinated, whether or not you support the lockdowns and mandates, and no, we shouldn't be fighting over these things. We shouldn't be angry at one another over personal choices. Do you know what we should be angry at? Is like, we're not even talking. Where did this thing come from?
Where did it come from? Who let the cat out of who let the bat out of the bag?
Right. Why were we funding? The NIH was funding through Eco Health Alliance in New York. We were funding through them the Wuhan, the research that was happening in the Wuhan lab. Why were we even trying to create a virus like this?
Yeah. Why are they for years and probably still? Why are we investing in people who are like actively looking for new coronaviruses and creating strains that don't exist in nature that almost like mimic, but you can never find an original source to these viruses, so that it's all the more confusing and frustrating to try and figure out where it came from. And like we're not even doing it. We're not even doing it with this first one. So what is that? What kind of a precedent does that set? Because I'm sure there'll be more released over time.
So they keep us fighting over the things that are inconsequential, in my opinion, so that there's more division, there's more hatred over these things, and we're completely distracted. Nobody's looking at the man behind the curtain. Obama banned gain of function research in 2011, which is why we had to fund it indirectly through the NIH, through Eco Health Alliance to the Wuhan. That's why it has to be. It's being done in China because we banned it here. But our money is going to that lab, and we're not angry about that. Nobody's focusing on that. We're not united and angry about the fact that they keep printing money and bailing out corporations. Why? Because we're fighting about, you're on the blue team. You're on the red team. I don't like you. You're a Republican. It doesn't matter. Like all that stuff to me is a distraction.
Could you see an alternate reality where Trump is still president and all the pandemic stuff happens, but like it's flip-flop, like the left is the one that's still the resistance, still like if you were to flip, like, do you think there's an alternate reality basically where like the right and the left or conservative and progressives are flipped, and the progressives are, we're not going to take it. We don't trust Trump's jab. I can't see a world where the left becomes freedom loving and fights for medical and bodily autonomy.
Because at this point in history, the authoritarianism has crept up on the left and really embraced the left. And don't worry, it's trying to get into the right as well. But it's really thoroughly at this point, shockingly, and maybe because we didn't see it coming because we didn't think it could happen. We weren't taught in schools that the authoritarianism doesn't know left or right. It can be either. This idea of like the government controlling us instead of the individual controlling ourselves, that's on the left now. And so if Trump had been, I've thought about this too, Chrissy, it's funny. If Trump had been president, I think they would have kept blustering on Twitter like they were about, I'm not going to take a Trump vaccine. But eventually they would have changed positions like they did on the virus itself. Remember at the beginning, they were saying Trump was that coronavirus. They printed tons of articles saying coronavirus it's not as dangerous as the flu. There's tons of headlines back in February of 2020.
One of the Scandinavian countries just came out and basically declared that the COOF is no more dangerous than the flu. Like this recently. Came out in the last, few weeks.
Well, that was their original stance, and they were in opposition to Trump taking any measures against it. Biden called him a xenophobe for limiting travel from China. Right. Remember, Democrats were telling people to go out to parades.
And Pelosi was like, go to Chinatown, lick a pole, buy some fish from a bucket,
Then they switched tactics and said, okay, well, let's come at him from the other side. He's not doing enough. So we were criticizing him for doing anything. Now we're going to say he's not doing enough. They would do the same with the vax. I think if he were president right now, they would go from criticizing the vaccine and calling it his vaccine to then saying he's not enforcing it. He needs to be doing a mandate. They would take that tack like they did with him on masks and lockdowns. They were saying, you're not doing enough. basically they were saying they were the people who had been calling him a demagogue and an authoritarian for 4 years were telling him, they were basically like, you're not being enough of an authoritarian. You need to do a federal lockdown, a federal mandates. And it's like, that's a dictator.
Like, I don't think it would have been it's my belief that it was released to catalyze his exit from office, because look at who Fauci is connected to, and look at who was behind it. And I don't know. I just think, right, it wouldn't have gone down this way, I think, if he weren't such a threat to
Well, if I get you banned with this interview, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Said
let's talk about makeup.
Yeah, let's talk about makeup.
I find, like, I do a blush now. Like, I got this free sample from Sephora. I'm trying to save up all my points. I don't know. I just don't like a lot of their free samples. Matthew Hammond brings up a good point. Have you noticed that there seem to be leftists that seem to be stuck in the mid to late 2000s on how they categorize the right? It's like they stepped out of a time machine. Is this Jon Stewart? No, I think that they have been able to, their side has been able to succeed and win without the majority of them having to do a lot of research or their own reading. Like, their side is in power, so they can kind of rest on their laurels and then be like, okay, we won. Now we can kick our feet up for years until, I think, conservatives and people on the right or politically homeless are just, they're more engaged and they're more like, okay, it's time to work. It's time to learn. It's time to bone up on our history, or, really prioritize creating communities and the focus on running locally and parents showing up to school board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't, what is the left doing other than tweeting and, complaining about the plight of the trans community? I don't know. Like,
they're completely in being enchanted by the narrative that's put out by the cathedral. The friends of mine who are still super in the woke left and that cult, it's almost like an enchantment where, the guy's playing what is that? The snake charmer. It's like they're being charmed and they're just dancing along. Yeah. And wherever they're being led, they'll go there. I mean, Trump was a great way to charm that group of people, because even now they will use his name if you try to talk to them about something, and they'll say their mind goes to Trump. But Trump. And it's really easy to control a person or a group of people if you can direct their hatred on one person. Then anything you tell them, well, this person supports this, we hate that person, okay, we oppose that. It's like, okay, this person opposes this, I hate that guy, then I'm for it, right? They're so easily controlled.
Was this the way it was, even when Obama was almost a year out of office, were people still bringing him up as often as they bring up Trump? He's
probably.
Yeah, I guess it is.
I don't know what the right was doing. Were you in that world? Do you know?
No, I voted for Obama the first time. Second time, didn't want to miss yoga, but my heart was like, my heart was with him. I was like, he'll win. He's fine. And then after 8 years of hope and change, people were like, hey, wait a minute. This was just, we voted for him because he was, he looked the part.
He sounded very good.
He did. My grandma was like, he's black, but nice.
I will admit I still have sort of a Pavlovian dog response to the way that he speaks and stuff, his cadence.
Oh yeah. He sounds great.
Yes. And I know that they're aware of that, because there are certain politicians who I can tell have been coached to speak like him.
I think Psaki has been. Yeah. I think Psaki's got a lot of Obama dialectical, is that a word? Patterns. I realized that when I was studying how she speaks to impersonate her. I was like, this sounds like Obama with a red wig.
Yeah.
From Ruben Christopher Haynes, everything that has occurred since 2008, the global financial crisis that has led to this, and the UN and globalist goal to implement Agenda 21 by 2030. Oh, I get so bummed out when I start thinking about Agenda 2030. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about this, but we know what happens. We know how YouTube feels about these subjects. It does seem easy to lose hope when you're like, wow, there is a plan set in motion here. What can any of us really do? From Drunk 3PO, just showing support.
Hey,
This is a great conversation. Aw.
I love that guy. I got to talk to him. He's so nice. Not nice is not a good compliment. He's very
He's
warm
nice.
and kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and authentic.
Someone in the chat wants me to talk about the decline in sperm for population as a whole. Wow. I mean, I used to get around, but now I can't speak for the whole sperm population of the planet. Even in countries like Japan and African countries are going through birth decline. I bet. Yeah, I think it's all part of the deal.
We're getting ready to read in Unsafe Space Book Club. Well, first we're reading Texit, which is a book about secession and a nonfiction book. But after that, we're going to read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which is still one of my favorite books, even though Showtime's ruined it and tried to turn it into a social justice nightmare. But the book deals with it's a post-apocalyptic vision of the future, which in which there's a lot of problems with fertility and people being able to give birth. And some of the things from that book, I'm like, like a lot of the post-apocalyptic fiction, you're like, oh, some of these things are coming true.
It's going to be really fascinating. Like, you look at the push to get certain possibly younger demographics with the yob, and it's like, all right, let's see in 10, 20 years what our birth rates are like, and
Yeah.
we can make some interesting statements. LJF, happy belated sweetest day, Chrissy. What is that? My birthday's not till November, but thank you.
My birthday just happened. Thank you, LFJ.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's for Carrie. Did I even wish you a happy birthday? Wow, am I a terrible friend?
Oh, no, you're not.
I think I did.
I did
somewhere.
post about it. Yeah, but it's whatever. There's so much stuff online.
You're like,
yeah, I love October's my favorite month because so many birthdays, including mine and Halloween, and I'm getting ready to celebrate my 2-year sobriety birthday. Which will be
wow.
at the end of the month. Yeah, that's cool.
You're
And
like,
then your birthday.
I'm going to celebrate with a drink. Oh, never mind. From APM, Tony Blair was a brilliant orator, but the most evil of any UK prime minister. A total disaster for us. I don't trust people who speak perfectly. That is why people loved Trump, because he sounded like them.
That's a good observation.
And it's like, you know, people are like, oh, he wasn't speaking to the top of his intelligence. It's like, I think he thought very carefully about the words he used and the tone. And like, people have said like Trump could do stand-up. Yeah, I think he looks at his speeches like sets and focuses on economy of words and knows to talk in sound bites because he knows how he's going to get, you know, clipped up. Why hasn't the left embraced Tulsi? Seems like an easy win. That's a good question.
Oh.
From A-Rod.
I
wonder if this is the A-Rod. Newly single A-Rod. Hello.
I don't think the left will embrace her because she doesn't embrace wokeness, which has now cannibalized the Democratic Party effectively. And so until they reject that belief system, that religion, they're not going to embrace any politician that is not a part of the faith. She's not a part of that faith.
Yeah, the authoritarian left are the bullies. I think they have the most juice and they get the most attention. They also have the loudest people. From Best Time Is Now. Ladies, what's your prediction for the midterm elections? Too soon to tell? Well, from all the people who I sort of trust online, it does seem like Trump is going to run. But who knows? Maybe they could be just part of the machine that's teasing it out.
Oh, in the midterms, here's my thing. I've become so less involved or interested in especially national politics. I don't trust the system. So I can't invest a lot of faith in it. And even before I lost trust in the system, I started to realize that I think what's happened in our country is a cultural problem. I know a lot of people agree, and I'm not the first to say that. And certainly who was it? Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. I believe we have a cultural war that we're in the midst of. And I also, unlike my co-host Carter, I would add that we're in a spiritual war. He's an atheist, but I believe that this is a spiritual war. And so I don't think you can solve that with politics. So I'm not really looking there for an answer anyway. I think you can get help there, but I don't really, I'm sorry. I don't really care that much about I'm not even,
we don't care. We don't care. Best time.
You know what I care about though is local. What you were saying, school board, that's where I think you're going to see the most changes. If you changing the makeup of your school board and your city council, that changes culture. That changes culture, which will eventually affect national politics. And so get involved in your local races. There's a very contentious race here happening in one of the districts in my little town in Texas, where we had a huge SJW in there affecting local policy. That affects our real life here. And so that's what I'm invested in. And Jake French for District 6 in Georgetown. Woohoo! That's what I care about.
For real. This is a better question, I think, for us right now from Matthew Hammond. What is your favorite Halloween candy? What are your thoughts on candy corn? Have you tried it with peanuts? Tastes like a payday. Highly recommend. I'm pretty partial to the candy pumpkins over the candy corn, just because I feel like it's more. It satiates me better.
It does. It's a larger amount of candy. I like the candy.
I always like candy that looks like something, it's fun.
Yeah.
I like candy corn. I've liked it more the older I get. I used to just I used to eat so much chocolate, stress eat chocolate in college, and now it's like I'd rather go for a sour thing or maybe a Butterfinger. Halloween candy though, yeah, Butterfinger, because it's you're not gonna get Butterfinger. You're not gonna just come across a Butterfinger, but Halloween is you'll get those little ones popping in. If you go and buy a Butterfinger at the store, people be like, "What are you, Bart Simpson?" But with Halloween, you can just be like, "Oh, I'm eating all this crazy ass candy." Sorry,
it's Halloween.
Yeah.
I compared notes with an 11-year-old recently, and we had some of the same favorites. I haven't eaten these in a while, but I love I like the sweet and sour. I like the Starburst and the Skittles and something tangy.
You ever had a sour Skittle?
I don't think so.
Oh my God. That's something else. It's really good. You know what I'm also really into? Probably my favorite on the sweet side are Nerd Rope, because it's gummy, but it's also nerds. So it's nerds from my childhood, but the rope makes it kind of modern. And it's gummy and it's chewy and crunchy.
Never tried it.
What? There's 3 flavors of Nerd Rope. Some are kind of rare. The berry one is sort of the go-to, the pink wrapper, and then blue, which is basically the same thing but blue. I don't know. I like candy. And then on the chocolate side, maybe a Butterfinger, maybe a Heath bar. Reese's are always good. Reese's Pieces. I could throw back a lot of those.
My treats lately, this isn't Halloween related, but just as an adult, one of the farms my housemate works for is they do jerky and pickled things. And so it's not candy, but it's very satisfying as a treat to have different kinds of jerky, like elk, beef, and she brings home all different kinds of pickled okra, pickled green beans, the spicy garlic pickled okra. Anyway, kids not into that stuff.
Maybe
it's more of an adult thing.
I could see Joe Rogan's kids eating just pickled elk. You know what I really like from Dunkin' Donuts is the snack in bacon, because it's sort of glazed in something. Oh, it's so good. It's ridiculous. I ate a lot of that during the lockdown because that's when it first came out. I was like, hello, who is this?
People were saying Americans don't have good chocolate.
That's true. Yeah. Cadbury is far superior to Hershey's and most of our stuff. Cadbury's so good. It's on another level. I want to talk about this because we brought up bullying and what are sort of the local ramifications of these trends. New York City judge blocks unvaccinated father from seeing daughter, not in the child's best interests. What? A New York City judge has barred a father from visiting his 3-year-old daughter unless he is vaccinated against COOF or submits to weekly tests. What is this, a job? Justice Matthew Cooper ruled in the divorce hearing, allowing the father to visit his daughter in person while unvaxxed is not in the child's best interest, according to New York Post. The father, who is unnamed, already recovered from the COOF, of course. None of us just acknowledge natural immunity. Why would we do such a thing like that? Here in person, parental access by defendant is not in the child's best interests. And they're, what, she's 3. This is insane. And then, okay, not in the child's best interest. And there are exceptional circumstances that support its suspension. Cooper wrote on October 7th, the dangers of voluntarily remaining unjabbed during access with a child while the COOF remains a threat to the child's health and safety cannot be understated. What? This is wild. This goes against every report, every statistic on children.
Yeah. Even the New York Times admitted recently that the risk to kids is exceptionally low. It's on par with the flu.
Yeah, there's something that is, I was reading something without like saying too much, like there's something inherent in like a child's immune system that makes them uniquely equipped to battle this off. It has something to do with like their, I don't know if it's like the nasal passages, but like there's a lot of immunity points kind of in their corner. It's pretty fascinating. I have to find that article. The father's attorney, Lloyd Rosen, pushed back against the judge's decision. Rosen defended his client's skepticism of the jab while attacking Cooper's reasoning as unscientific. The attorney pointed out that his client already had natural immunity from his bout with COOF. My client is not a conspiracy theorist, Rosen said. He has concerns. Isn't that crazy that a lawyer still has to
say this?
Yeah. He has concerns about the jab. He heard about the side effects. He once had a bad reaction to a flu jab. Oh, these are all reasonable claims.
So this is what we've been talking about. I mean, this is authoritarianism. This is the fruit of a culture that is now becoming more accustomed to the idea that the government gets to dictate what your rights are, that the government gets to limit your liberty, your pursuit of liberty, freedom, happiness. There's so much wrong with this, but I think the way that we have to start attacking it is pointing out that it's authoritarianism is one thing, but I think it's falling on deaf ears. I think the left, the ones who are authoritarians, they can't hear it. They can't hear it. And so what I've found lately is that it's more effective to also point out that it's religious fundamentalism. They don't like being called puritanical. This is Puritanism. It's faith-based.
The left doesn't like being called puritanical because they like to be so separated from religion and morals and spirituality and godliness. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend calls them Branch Covidians because it's really a faith system and they hate that, but that's what it is.
Right. It's like you're desperately searching for something to replace God, and it's not going to be science. It's not going to be your leaders. It's not going to be your scientists.
And it has a lot of, I don't know if you saw, but the people who are really in that cult of, not everyone who's vaccinated is in the cult of Branch Covidians, but the people who are in it, you know what I'm talking about. They're the ones who were posting on Twitter after they got the vax about how it was like a religious experience and they were crying and stuff. Like, it's like baptism. It's like baptism for them. It's something, it means something.
They've been anointed.
Like a rebirth. Yes.
Yeah, they've been knighted.
Yes. And so call them that. That's what they are. There's a coffee shop that I used to go to. There was one coffee shop that really enforced the mask mandate that used to be my favorite coffee shop. And I quit going there because they didn't believe in my freedom to choose as a customer. And also because it was so arbitrary how they enforced it. Like a lot of these places, they would be super mask holes about making sure you had it on while you ordered. But then as soon as you sat down at your table, everybody has to take it off. It doesn't make any sense. Everybody's sitting close together and it's off. But like, you got to put it on for these magic 6 steps up to the counter, or if you go to the bathroom, make sure it's on. So I used to go in there and just troll them in real life. I would pop in there every once in a while and just ask them like, hey, are you guys still requiring your religious garments on your face garments? And they were like,
awesome.
Get out. Get out. But it is. It's a
I would
religious
love to
garment.
watch. I would love to see you get thrown out of an establishment because you're like the nicest person. And you'd be like, okay, you just like get in a little 1-2
I always
punch.
do it with a smile on my face. With
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
There's something strange. Like I went into this like small coffee shop that was like next to this gym I went to this morning, and okay, you see the signs. I didn't see any of this, and it's not New York City, so there's not the signs of like you need to, papers before you come in. Although I've heard a lot of places are like low key not enforcing that. But there's something about, and I walked in, barefaced, just raw dogging life, and there's something strange about walking in a place, and I'm the only one without a mask, but everyone else is just voluntarily wearing theirs. It feels like almost like, oh, everyone in here speaks a different language. It feels like I'm in a foreign place.
Yeah, because they're all of the same religion. Oh, Chrissy, did I freeze up? Did I lose you?
Did I freeze up?
I
Can
can
you hear
see
me?
you now. Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Because I walked in and the coffee shop looked like a preschool, and there were like messages of like unity and equality, and I was like, oh, and then you just look at the head barista, you're like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? Like it's this kind of a coffee shop, and I just was like, oh, there's nowhere else to go. Like let's just get this over with. And there's something about when I go into these like woke coffee shops, there's something inside me that wants to order the most boring, like I like a fancy latte every now and then, but something inside me when I go into these woke coffee shops, like out of protest, I'm like, I'll just have a plain with half and half, like a real
like a real American. Oh, I think it's just me on your show now. I think it's going to be the Carrie and Tiger show. Well, until Chrissy comes back.
Okay, so I was saying, like, there's something about being in a woke coffee shop that makes me want to order coffee like my dad, Like, yeah,
yes.
I'll just get a small with milk, all right? I'm get the fuck out of here.
So fancy. Yeah. One of the things I do, I don't know, I developed this years ago. Even when I was in the woke cult, I did this. I just call people, as an affectionate term, lady. I call you lady all the time. I'm like, hey, lady. And I usually call men sir. And in the South, most people don't mind that. And so the coffee shop I go to now, I love them because they believe in freedom of choice, and they did not require masks during all the craziness here. But I've noticed all the baristas now put their pronouns, and they're all what they are, obviously on their name tag. It has their name, and they're all obvious. It's like, yeah, you're a dude. Yeah, I would assume he and him. Yeah, you're a girl. I would assume she and her. There's one they them, and then there's a bunch of like obvious what the trans activists would call.
They hurry up with my muffin?
Yes.
Yeah, just like,
and
okay.
So what's interesting is that they haven't said anything to me yet. There's one she them, which is funny. I'm like, come on, you're just trying to be difficult. She them or her them, like give me a break. But so I call them lady and sir all the time, and I'm waiting for the day when they get offended by that, when somebody's like, I am not a lady.
It is ma'am. It is ma'am. What is the point? Like we get like pronouns are very normalized. They are too normalized. So it's like, what is the point of having your pronouns if it's like your pronouns match with your head? The point of the pronouns is when you look at someone, you go, huh, I don't know. What do you think?
Next time we go in, I should just point at the guy that says he, him, and be like, surprising.
What about old school pronouns like, hey, you, or, that over there, that person? Oi. Well,
Chrissy, when you disappeared for a second, I thought I was going to have to do your show, and it scared me, just so you know.
I think
it was fine, though.
I think I need to, I don't know, get a different internet service where I am. I don't think it's the plug, because this is a brand new plug. This laptop, I bought it last summer. So I don't know. Maybe I have to get like a stronger something. Maybe they're just coming to get me. And when I start speaking truths, they cut out my internet. No, it's all good.
You're good.
Ooh, Mr. Peters for 5. Hey, Chrissy, love the N-word segment with Kumia. Not very many funny women. You're one of the few who are. Thanks, Mr. Peters. Sorry, my homework was late. Mr. Peters just sounds like a name of a teacher.
Do you
Yeah.
Think there's any truth to that stereotype that there aren't as many funny women as men? That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. I know why less women do stand up. I think
Why?
women are because everything about it is not what most women like. It's unglamorous. It's like agreeing to take an unpaid job for up to 10 years during the best dating and reproductive years of your life. And most women are not going to sign up for it. Or if they do, they see, oh, this is the path that's laid up ahead of me, and I could waste all these years, not make it, not get famous, whatever, and then blow my chances at meeting a partner because you've just because my mom would say to me all the time, like, Chrissy, you're wasting the best years of your life doing comedy. I'd be like, yes, I know, but it's kind of I'm in it now. It's like it's a disease. So yeah, it's like it's a lot of running around. It's late at night, and all your spots, performing happens during dating hours. So a lot of these open mics, sure, there's some on the weekend, but most of them happen like between like 6 and midnight during the week, and that's the time that girls are out having somebody pay for their dinner. So
Right.
you
Or home
really
with
have to
kids.
want it. Yeah, you really have to want it. Yeah, or like most women want to try to have a family during those years and raise them. There are more men who do stand up because even if men pair up and have a family, it's not really on them to raise the kids, especially when they're little. It's like, oh, the kid's not going to bond with you until a few years down. So, and it's also kind of like this cultural thing, like the men are still expected to work and if they make more money. But it's interesting because men who are having kids but doing stand up, in a lot of cases, the man is not the breadwinner. I've seen so many comedy couples where the guy, even I was listening to an interview by Giannis Pappas. He said he just quit his job, pursued comedy the full time, and just like relied on his girlfriend for years because she had a really good job. So it's this interesting dynamic of like, okay, you're the man, you're expected to be the breadwinner, but you pursue this career in which you're not going to make money for years, and your girlfriend better really like you and really believe in your potential to want to stick around with that. But if you're a woman who's pursuing this career, like most guys are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to get with a woman who's not going to be around to like make dinner, have and raise kids, or whatever. Just have me be the full focus, like you're out late
Right.
at night. If you're a funny girl, there's less girls doing comedy. So it's more likely that if you're even a little bit good looking, you're going to get hit on a lot. Like, whereas girls are so attracted to a funny man, like there's also just more men doing stand up. They'll also get a ton of attention from women. But like when you're a funny woman, there's also the thing of like, most guys want to be the funny one in the relationship.
Yes.
So if that touches a button on their insecurity, they're going to be like, oh, well, all right, not her. Because I'm intimidated by that. So it's like pursuing comedy, stand up as a chick is like, it's kind of a few strikes against you right out the gate. There's always, outliers, like Michael Che did stand up 2 years later. He got picked for SNL. And then of course you have like Rachel Feinstein, who like, I think she did pretty well, married a firefighter. I think she has a kid. And then it depends. Like
it depends.
It's really a crapshoot.
It also strikes me that maybe the big five, the personality scale, that maybe because women score higher in agreeableness on the big five personality traits. And maybe there's something about that too, where it's harder because if you're a comedian, you have to be okay with some people hating you and not liking you or not.
Yeah. Oh
giving
yeah.
you
Being
validation.
Especially with Twitter having any kind of a platform, you're going to get trolled. People are going to call you fat. You're going to every insult. You're going to hear like it. And some people come harder for you because then you have the genuine misogynist who, anytime I have a troll who's just coming after me with such a fervor, I'm like, okay, this is a true misogynist because I didn't do anything to this person. I'm not like, I'm just really triggering something in them.
That's the thing about trolls, I find, is that they obviously, we know this, but they engage in a lot of projection and they'll usually tell you a lot about themselves. And they don't know anything about you. They're coming at you, trying to hurt you with things that would hurt them. Yes. And so you're like, wow, you're telling me so much. So if you're insulting my looks, I'm like, oh, because you think that would hurt me because that hurts you.
Oh
It's like,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I have this
or-
comic, he like trolls me a lot, where he talks shit. I mean, he's blocked me now on his Twitter, but he, sometimes talks shit, I guess because he doesn't have anything else to talk about. His name's Chad Zumach, and one of his like insults was like, "Oh, what New York City clubs are you performing at?" It's like, well, like which are you past at? I'm like, well, my whole thing right now is like I'm not performing somewhere that makes you show papers. And I also feel like what I'm not to sound like I have a big head, but like where I'm going and like my path, I feel like is so much bigger than like what clubs am I passed at in New York City. It's like
yeah,
I feel like I'm part of this like community, this mission or whatever.
Yeah.
That's bigger than okay, what 50 people am I gonna do 15 minutes in front of in New York City tonight? So
yeah.
but
You
to
have
answer
a
that,
bigger.
yeah, to answer the other part of your question, I think there are so many funny women. They're just not really pursuing stand up or comedy. My mom was so fucking funny. Like, my sister is so funny. And I think like women are so funny with their friends and at work and with each
Yeah.
other. Um, it just doesn't result in stand up comedy careers because of all the extra hardships that go along with it.
Yeah. It's a lot of interesting factors, I think, that go into that.
Oh, yeah. Little
Um,
Ragamuffin. I've got nothing important to say today, but I wanted to toss you some coin because you're both super cool and insanely awesome. Keep the truth bombs coming.
I love you, Little Ragamuffin. If you guys don't know, Little Ragamuffin is a sewist.
A sewist.
Yes,
Is
who
that a
has
word?
been, it's a word in the sewing community. There was a huge SJW war that happened, just like in the knitting world, and they've tried to cancel her
Sewing
repeatedly.
drama?
Sewing
Wow.
drama. They've banned her from so many fabric sites. They won't allow her, like, they call her a race, they call her all the names, all because she wouldn't take a knee to them and do the demanded apologies because she's a badass who believes in truth.
Wow.
But if you want to support a sewist who does cool patterns, and you can check out Little Ragamuffin. I love this girl. Anyway,
Is that so? Okay, that would be if I was a sewer, that would be the name of my podcast. Is that so?
is that so?
Or be like pins and needles. That's cute.
Threading the needle on da da da. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot
So
of
many
puns.
sewing puns. From Channel Julio, I'm at risk of losing my Army civilian job if I'm not fully vaxxed by mid-November. I will apply for religious exemption, but they have not indicated how to apply it yet. Such BS. Do you know of any federal employee lawsuits I could join? God, Robert Barnes would be such a good person, or whose content it would be so good to follow to learn about this. I know he's got a locals community. I know he does a weekly podcast with, I think his name's David Fry, or he goes by Viva Fry on Twitter. He's Canadian, delightful man, and Barnes is just the smartest, most articulate guy on this topic. He's really versed in constitutional law. But yeah, I would see, and that's the thing is I don't know anything about like the Army's requirements, but I know that's some corporate jobs they are offering, like they have a religious and medical exemption forms like that are their own. They have their own questions on there, their own requirements. So it's interesting.
I was going to say, if you don't have, I'm not aware of any federal lawsuits, but Channel Julio, your name is so familiar. I think I know you. But you should check out on Gab if you haven't already. Just do a search for Gab religious exemptions, because they have a bunch of the paperwork that you'll need if you're applying for that. And then I was going to recommend I'm not familiar with that person. I'm going to talk to you about him later, Chrissy, because I want to
He's
have.
the best. He's got such BDE. Like, he has big lawyer dick energy. He's so confident. He's such a nice guy. Like, you meet him and you're like, he's a little intimidating because he's such a boss, but then he's the nicest guy. And like, not a lot of ego until he needs to stand up for himself, and then he'll just donkey punch you with the law.
I'm gonna look him up. I don't know him. There's one other one I was gonna recommend, but I can't remember her name. I'll find it in a minute. I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
We both have COVID brain fog, so
we do.
Bear with us.
I can't remember things as well.
I didn't know there was a name for it. I just thought I had like natural blonde, brain fog, but now I get to blame it all on COVID brain fog. From Jesse CT6, it's not about right and wrong. It's about power and money. Ain't that the truth? Mo money,
Oh.
mo problems.
Chris Ann Hall, that's her name.
Chris
She's
Ann
a
Hall.
constitutional lawyer that we've spoken with before, and I know if you guys look her up, her name is spelled Krisanne, Chris Ann Hall. She probably has resources on this on her website.
Ooh, I'll bring it up. Ooh, I like her already. I'm gonna bring up her thing. You know how I know this lady's the real deal? She's got her arms crossed in this picture of herself.
Yes.
That's how I know to take her seriously.
She's brilliant, and she is badass. Another badass, like
Ooh.
inspiring.
All the things I like to see. Cool. I'm gonna check her out. Oh, and she's got videos and such. What is this? Biden holding a football? My God, it looks like he's in like a dementia, like dream fugue state here. Cool. I'm definitely gonna look into her more so. Ooh, A-Rod is back. Expecting a man to be the breadwinner while fighting for equal salaries and rejecting gender roles seems hypocritical. Yeah, they want their cake and they want to eat it too.
Yes. A lot of the things that I don't know if you found this to be true, but I started to become awake to the fact that a lot of people in the third wave feminist movement, like the social justice part of feminism, they want their cake and they want to eat it too, like you just said. Like they also try and force certain things on themselves, like who they're attracted to, what they find attractive, what they want in a man. They try and force it, and it's sort of they want this this sort of weakened kind of a female in a man's body who they are sort of the boss of, but at the same time, innately, I think a lot of them struggle with the fact that they want the guy to be the leader, and so it's this war within themselves over what they really want.
Yes, we have a generation of women who have been told, it's like the advice that's doled out and how it's actually, I guess, digested, it's not lining up, because a generation of women are being told, like, don't settle, you go girl, you can have whatever you want. And then we are not taking into account like the real nature of men. It's like you can't pick and choose which masculine qualities or which qualities of a man that you want. There's no such thing as a perfect person. So it's like, oh, you want a guy to like crush it at his job and make six figures, but you want a perfect communicator that like asks you if they can hold your hand first. It's like,
yes.
Yeah, that guy that makes all that money is going to get drunk and try to stick it in your butt. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not going to get like the sensitive interpersonal like perfection there with, you know what I mean? Like that person is not going to be somebody who you translate those skills to the working world. Well, that's not going to equal an incredibly high earner, and that's okay. Like everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, but this is how we end up with end up single, and they don't want to be. It's okay to be single, but the overwhelming majority of like women we all see their TikToks. It's like, no, this isn't about fat phobia, this isn't about racism, this isn't about white supremacy. It's like, you are deeply unhappy. It doesn't matter what your stupid TikTok is about, girl. Like, you look in the mirror and you tear up sometimes. So let's pretend
they're miserable. They've actually, and studies show, like, women self-report that their happiness level, our happiness level as a group, has declined significantly in the past few decades. Why? Now that we have all this opportunity and access and equality and all these, why are we less happy? I've got some ideas about why that might be, but when you talk about this stuff, you get called a internally misogynist.
Wait, what do you think? I'm curious. Why do you think we're less happy?
Well, I think one thing that happened as a consequence of normalizing, which we should have done, women should be able to do. I do believe women should be able to do any job they want to, as long as they can do it. But what's happened as a consequence of pushing so many women, we doubled the workforce. The workforce. And so salaries declined, because when it was mostly men working outside the home, you're talking about the 50s, and you've got women, most women are homemakers. you've got half the workforce available. People are making more money. When you double the workforce, people make less money. And now it almost requires both parents, if you got kids too, gosh, both of you have to be working in order to provide for your family. So you're both exhausted at the end of the day. You're both in that role of coming home and wanting to relax and hoping someone has prepared food for you or whatever. You're both in that role suddenly. And I know there's situations where sometimes now the man is the homemaker, and I think that'll probably work better than both of you being the breadwinner. But that means the woman also has to have a job that pays like really well, because most people require those two salaries now. So people are exhausted. And then you've got women, it's sort of like we were talking about, I think, fighting against what comes naturally. Sometimes you're repressing it, where you're being told you should want X, Y, and Z. But we know that, like, for example, there's all this talk about why isn't there 50-50 women in STEM? Why isn't there 50-50 women? It must be sexism. It's not sexism. It's because women are choosing to do other things. That's my opinion.
Interest. Yeah. Peterson
Different interests.
talks at length about this. Yeah. It's like, I'm not in STEM because that shit's hard. And I like to draw and talk to people and make jokes. And that's what I was doing in high school. Yeah.
Who wants to sit in so I went to science and math high school, and this was for gifted and talented students in my state in South Carolina. And we lived there 11th and 12th grade. So this is supposed to be the brightest of our state, right? And then we left, and it's a STEM school. We left, all of us went to great colleges, whatever. You look at what the people are doing now. There are some of the women that went to that high school with me who are in science and math now, but there's more of them than there are men who are not doing that. I'm not doing STEM. I've got friends who are homemakers who went to that school. Why? Because they chose that. And also women who are more gifted in math and science, they're usually also gifted in, studies show they're also talented in other areas. So they have, they're better at speaking, for example. They can do other things. They can choose from among other things. Whereas the guys on the upper end of that bell curve, sometimes it's just talented in math and science, and they're very gifted there, but they're not great public speakers, or they're not as great in some of these other fields. And so they don't have as many choices. But we're not going to talk about that, how talented women have a lot of choices.
Yeah. And women have the luxury of not necessarily choosing the most high earning career they could possibly do, whereas the pressure is more on men to choose like the highest earning job that they can. And this is another huge like light bulb I had. Think about like how our mother's generation, our grandmother's generation, your whole identity and your focus was raising the family, right? The money that came through or that your husband made, right? It was all about, what do the kids need? Let's get through this depression or whatever. Like, let's just raise our 3 kids. Now, like our generation, a woman's identity is heavily wrapped up in your consumerism, the things you buy, the gym that you go to, the like, what is it, like, treat yourself. Like, this is the treat yourself generation.
Yes.
And so with all that, like, I think about how much money my mother spent on herself. She didn't go to a gym. She wasn't like, she would go to the mall with me and my sister. But she wasn't like, she was wearing old stuff. We all had old stuff. There was not like, she was never wearing the latest anything. And once my dad like got a decent Teamster job, it's like her spending habits weren't like out of control, because her identity was with her family, raising us kids. But our generation, like women now, like 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever, it's all about like, the things you buy.
Yourself,
and of course you're gonna need 2 jobs for that, because you can't raise a family and buy the latest everything, have the newest car, the newest phone. It's like, of course you're gonna need both people to work if you also want to have kids. We just had like, women were buying less shit a few decades ago.
You're making me think of, Chrissy, a sermon my preacher gave about how he was saying he believes we're designed as creatures, as human beings, to worship. And if you're not worshiping God, you're going to worship something else. And he was talking about the mall and consumerism, and how what you're saying, this sort of me culture, when I buy to treat myself, and
it's fleeting. It's never enough. Fleeting.
It's like an empty religion. It's an empty religion, because you go to the store, and even again, like, think about rituals. Like for some people, the vaccine was like a baptism. Well, for
Mhm.
some people, buying new clothes all the time, like people that have a shopping habit where you would say maybe shopping is their god, that's like baptism. You're putting on even the signs at the mall. Remember they would like treat yourself, put on. It's like you're taking off the old
Yeah.
clothes and you're
I
putting on the
deserve
new.
this. Yeah.
Yes.
Because
Like,
I know that anytime I bought, like, it's always on sale, like a new like tote bag from Coach that I really wanted. It was like super on sale. Great. I was like happy for a day, but then you're like, oh, what's the next thing? And I caught myself in that, and I was like, oh,
yes.
it's a trap. Snap out of it. Like once you find yourself like you're beginning to be seduced again by like the latest shit, it's like that's even if you give in one more time, it's like it never ends. So
And it doesn't even have to be the latest shit. It can be like I love Goodwill. Most of it because I will spend, I will spend good money on handmade boots and nice hats, but most of my clothes come from Goodwill, so I could justify
and
that.
those last
But you can
forever.
still,
Yeah.
yeah, but you can still make Goodwill that kind of shopping a god too. I've done it. I have to watch that in myself because
Because you
as
go,
I
it's
get,
cheap. I'm gonna go
yeah,
nuts and spend
yeah,
hundreds of dollars here because it's cheap. And it's like you get in there, you're like hungry, hungry hippos.
yes, you're searching for that high of like I found that
It
thing.
is a high. You're like, this is a $5 skirt.
It's amazing.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah,
I could get
that can
ravenous
become
in
a
a thrift
small god.
store. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to stop going because I would be like foaming at the mouth. I'd be like, are you okay, man? I was like, yeah. But that's why it's almost so it depends on your shopping style, but it's like, okay, maybe just get one thing you really want, and maybe it is a little bit more than you would spend, but you love this thing
Mhm.
rather than like many, many cheap things that you got because they were cheap and you felt like it was a deal
And it's the high.
and you're
It's the
less
high.
into
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
things, you know? Well,
Just so you know, oh, somebody says that is sad. It is sad. I think a lot of people, so we all have things that I kind of agree with my preacher. I think we all have things that we can worship. And even if you're a believer, you believe in God, or you believe in a deity. I think you can still tend to put like what they call idols, right? Like these small gods in front. And so I did that for some people do it with alcohol. Like, and then
mhm.
if you get rid of one, sometimes you'll find it transfers somewhere like, oh, I got rid of alcohol, but I started smoking. It's like, oh yeah, you
Right.
just replaced one small god with another. And so I think we all have to be aware of like what's that thing that owns me?
Ooh.
Like does shopping own me? Like if it does, that might be a problem. But
Yeah, and if you're someone who struggles with this, like I definitely did, I would be like, "You know what?" Like, because I had to shift from always on the lookout for a good deal, "Oh, I might need this," to waiting till you need a thing and then going shopping. But I think I grew up in a sort of like broke mentality because my family wasn't like poor, but like how I was raised was very much like don't ask for anything for yourself, like don't, you know what I mean? Like the thought of going to a restaurant with my family and like I could order whatever I wanted. Are you kidding me? You know?
yeah.
Like it's almost like I grew up, with this like chicken finger mentality. And as an adult, you're like, well,
Mhm.
I deserve chicken fingers. Like I'm not even gonna think of a steak.
Mhm.
But then like adult you and child you sometimes are at odds with each other. So if you're in this
Yeah.
like chicken finger mentality, you go to a thrift store and you buy like 30 things. And I think I had to do that. I had to like convince myself, like, just because it's cheap, like just because you go into a store, like I'm just gonna get. There's something about going into a store. You're like, well, I can't leave here empty-handed. I can't have no winnings.
Yeah.
So the thing you buy, maybe if you just saw that thing, you'd be like, I'll leave. But you're like, of all the things, yeah, these things are too expensive. These things didn't fit. But this is the one thing that I could buy,
It's the
so I
chicken
must.
fingers.
It's the chicken finger mentality. And it's like, you can walk away, go into another store and get a freaking steak,
Mhm.
get the steak
That's
of
how I am
hoodies.
about boots, lady. You
Yeah.
deserve a steak, like nice footwear that's gonna
Yeah.
support your spine.
Footwear is always good to good shoes. I learned that early on walking around New York City for years. Like good shoes, that's like your tires. Cause it's like we don't have
Mhm.
cars. We're walking around everywhere. The craziest thing about the lockdowns was feeling my feet every couple of months because they would get softer and softer because I had like the thickest calluses on my feet just from walking around in high heels for years. And now I would joke that they're like, oh, they're like animal paws, but now that they're totally like soft, like regular
Soft.
feet again. And I don't have to like traumatize my the Asian pedicure lady. Oh, your feet are so rough. What is wrong? Do you have to walk home? I missed some super chats. Let's see. From Nat D, Andrew Yang is cool. I'm joining the forward party. Oh yeah. I feel neutral on Andrew Yang.
Yeah, I don't.
Nah.
That's, I don't know.
Cameron. Oh, I know Cameron. I did a stream with him a couple days ago. He said, when are we going to do our review of the party?
Oh, I have news about that, but I can't. I'll tell you offline,
Okay.
and then we can tell everybody. But yeah, we're doing it soon. I promise.
Oh, God.
I promise.
I probably have to rewatch it so I can regain my anger for this film.
You can re-hate it.
From Mr. Peters, I think too many female comics make the mistake of doing comedy that's only relatable to other women. I understand your point, Mr. Peters. I think that comes from women who don't have a ton of male friends. Because if you have a lot of male friends, like you learn how they joke around, you learn how to relate with them. And that if you're a woman who just has mostly female friends, like you know what I mean? If you're only used to communicating with women and you don't have a ton of male friends, it's like men joke around by ribbing each other. It's like, anytime you listen to a good, funny podcast, it's just the rhythm of that. And that rhythm and everyone constantly shitting on each other was my household growing up. We're all just like taking jabs at each other. So I don't think it's that women don't think. It's like it's not a conscious process. I think it's just they have a narrow maybe friend group. And I mean, the more dudes you can be friends with, I think probably the funnier you're gonna be. I know that's a pretty hot take.
No, I think you're right. Actually, I like going on Friday Night Tights, or even just listening to them if I'm not on there, because it is that kind of guy humor where, like you said, it's very fast, and it actually makes me think sort of what we're talking about with women and comedy and being agreeable. And on average, I think most women are not as comfortable in that role, and you have to, because you were in it when you were younger, you're more used to it. I was really exposed to it for the first time in shooting clubs, like when I was going to the range, and it would be mostly guys and a couple women, but all the guys, it was that kind of humor, and everybody's insulting it. It's exactly the opposite of PC culture, because they're in love, like in affection, insulting one another for all of their identity categories.
Yeah, because oftentimes what the funniest thing you can say is not always the most agreeable, empathetic thing. Yes. So if you go with your gut of the funniest thing, it's like you're gonna be saying a lot of shit that's not agreeable, that's not kind, that's not thoughtful, that's not worrying about other people's feelings, offending somebody. But if women, I think, are more to default to like kind, nurturing, thinking of others, that is often not the funniest thought.
Yes.
Here we go. From Heather Gochin, you're amazing. New subscriber. Found you on Viva Fry Barnes Sidebar on YouTube. Love you. Oh, love you too. Yeah, it's just what I was talking about. You should watch. You would love them, Carrie.
Oh, what are they called?
They do a show called Sidebar. I think it's every Wednesday on YouTube. It's with Robert Barnes and Viva Fry, Frei.
I will check them out.
Check it out. Mikey Gustler.
I have a little book of insults and comebacks that I bought years ago to help me with that kind of.
You have a book of insults?
Yes.
That's so precious.
Sorry, I interrupted.
I love that. Aw. Mikey Gustler has a question for you, Carrie. Carrie, what are your thoughts on the latest news regarding the Lord of the Rings TV show? Also, when will you be back on Friday Night Tights?
I don't know when I'll be back on FNT. I didn't know there was a Lord of the Rings TV show coming out. I'm really afraid, actually, that they're going to mess it up. That's lately my fear with anything that they take that I enjoy that's already existing property, like The Handmaid's Tale, is them injecting modern social justice politics into it. It makes me sick, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Ugh.
Otherwise, I would be excited.
Cool. From Cisco Kid, my two favorite YouTube ladies. Keep it up. Ladies. Thank you, Cisco. I feel like a lady. Yeah.
Ladies.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's just like my thoughts about like women in comedy have like changed so much over the years. But when you really take a step back, it's like, oh yeah, how many guy friends do you have? That comes down to so much of it. And then look at Amy Schumer. Everyone loved her. She was hanging out with the guys all the time. Some people think that her sets or her sense of humor was formed by dating Anthony Jeselnik. Some people think he wrote a lot of her stuff. But then look at who her audience was. Who was she beloved by? Leftist women. Yeah. Crazy, liberal cat ladies, and she got a lot of celebrity girlfriends. So she's moving away from her gritty comedy community
Where she started.
into Hollywood celebrity, which is
Yes.
full of what? Is there anything funny about success and doing well? No.
No.
Having plenty of money? Come on,
I saw that happen when I worked, because as you know, I was a comedy manager, and we had my own company with a music manager, and probably the only, well, no, your audience might have heard of some of it. Well, Margaret Cho I managed, but the other names that your audience might have heard of would be W. Kamau Bell. He's very woke. He was very woke then too, which is why I wanted to work with him, because I was super woke. He's gotten worse, in my opinion.
Really?
Since then. And yeah, just in terms of being more of an ideologue, if his social media presence is any indication. And I saw a video he did where he was like, it was him and Conan O'Brien, and he was basically, it was like a come to woke Jesus moment for Conan O'Brien. He was accepting wokeness as his Lord and personal savior.
The baptism, right?
Yeah. Yes. It's creepy. But yeah, so I worked with a number of comics, and I saw that happen with some people. You can see this with any, you can see it with musicians too, though. It's when you hit a certain degree of fame or popularity, and then, like you said, you become famous and you become rich, and you're a part of Hollywood or what have you, and you don't really know what the common experience is anymore. Unless you do something to keep yourself grounded, then what are all your jokes going to be about? It's like, today my assistant went to the ATM for me, and then my personal chef came over and cooked for me. And then, it's just like a totally unrelatable life.
Money and fame smooths your edges, but you need your edges to stay funny and relatable and unique and interesting. So let that be a warning to everyone, not to get too successful. No.
Stay grounded. Do some things yourself.
Yes.
Even though you don't have to.
Totally. Last super chat here from Sam Adams. Oh, love your beer, Sam. Could you help me start a series on American psychology with Michaela Peterson? I mean, that sounds like a question for her. I think some people get confused. Like, if I do a podcast once with somebody, that means that we are now best friends. I definitely don't know her like that, but I would say start your own series on American psychology. And then if it gets good enough, you could have her on as a guest. I guess that's my advice. Maybe that was a joke. Maybe I just took that comment.
Oh, maybe seriously. It was a joke. Well, speaking of people that you've met once or you've done something with, I have to go soon because get this. So today I get to hang out with, this rarely happens in real life where like I got to see you recently. Today I'm going to Zuby's in Austin. I'm gonna go.
I'm so jealous.
I know. And then after that, my friend Mike Harlow, who you talked to, is here, and we're gonna go to a haunted house with Blair White.
My God, I'm FOMOing so hard.
I'm like, what? Today's a busy day.
Do you remember the show from the 80s, Zoobilee Zoo?
No.
Fuck. Okay, I think I would love Zuby to have a show called Zuby Zoo. But you have to.
Do you mean Zaboomafoo with the lemur?
No, there was a show called Zoobilee Zoo. I grew up on it because I think it was on basic cable.
Oh, I don't know that one.
All right. I'll have to finish that joke on my own. Carrie, this was great. I can't believe the hour and a half flew by, and sorry for the technical snafu earlier. I just ran out of storage on StreamYard. Things happen. Cisco Kid, will there be cake? Hail, Carrie.
There will be cake.
Chrissy Bayer's boobs for 5. Wow. Just got here. Did we miss the party movie discussion? Also free us. Oh my God. You two need to shut your trap. I don't know who this person is. And they were on Friday Night Tights. Like there was a whole act out where it was like my boobs and me fighting and then the boobs won. It's like this thing is it's out of control. It's too much at this point.
Do you really not know who runs that account?
I really have no idea.
I hope they never tell you.
Don't meet your heroes. Yeah.
It's me.
It's me. Carrie, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on. I adore you. Where can people find you and follow you?
You can find us at unsafespace.com. And also you can follow me on YouTube at Carrie Smith. There's nothing really up there right now, but there's going to be soon. That's a little preview. So
Ooh, a little tease.
I will say hey in chat and you can find me. But yeah, there's nothing there right now. But yeah, unsafespace.com. We have a book club, as I mentioned, and we do live shows Mondays and Fridays. Thank you, Chrissy. I love hanging out with you. On or off camera.
And Boobs, you did not miss the discussion of the guest, the party. I think
we didn't do it.
We didn't do it yet. Because the movie's so bad. No, it's just technical schedule snafu. All right. Thank you, chat. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the super chat. Until next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.